got up, and I thought, my God, where'd they all come from, you know? And it was traumatic. It was scary, and yet it was, you know, actually, I thought, considering the women and the children and the people that were inside, that were under this tremendous attack, this tremendous volley of firing, actually handled themselves very calmly, I thought, by and large, you know. I mean, that doesn't mean there wasn't any screaming. There was people in pain. There was people that were scared, but I thought they handled themselves pretty good. And they certainly were not involved in any ambush. When first time I ran upstairs, as Catherine said, here's the whole hallway in the second floor. With all, you know, you couldn't even get down the hall because the women were laying on top of the children trying to protect them. And but there were bullets coming up through the floor. They were coming down through the ceiling, through the walls, and
That's
you know,
right.
it was just nobody knew whether they were going to be next. You know, it was getting hit. Actually, it's a miracle that so few did receive gunshot wounds in there on that first go-round, you know.
I'd like to inject something too. Clive went back a while, and I'd like to go back a while because we had, before the women all moved upstairs, they lived downstairs. A lot of them lived downstairs. They were in different areas, and the men were in different areas. And we had, David had a feeling that from what was being told him by people outside, that someone was going to come to try to get the children. So there was a rule made that the children would not go out unless they were accompanied by someone, some adult. And so when they went into the huge sandbox that we had, there was always a couple of adults there. The children had already been inspected by the women that had come from the government to see if they were being abused. And I talked to Joyce, and Joyce told me that they were not abused. They could see that. They were very intelligent. They answered every question. They were very polite, and they were exceptional children. So we knew that we weren't going to have a problem with the government about any of our children being abused. But a lot of the families outside who had heard all these terrible stories, we were afraid that some of them might come and try to take them, that something could happen so we'd lose the children. And David told us that the women were all going to live on the second floor with the children to protect them. The men were going to move down to the first floor. And that's when the shift came. That's what we really and truly expected, that someone was going to try to take our children away from us. And of course, they wanted to, but no one ever did. I also wanted to tell about when after the shooting stopped, I had tried to go and lay out in the hallway. Couldn't find a place to lay down. I mean, it was just covered with people. So I stayed in my room, and like I told you, I was always looking out that window. But when I did go downstairs, I passed some things out to the women after a while, and I'd gone downstairs, and Kathy Schroeder was filling everything she could find with water because we were losing our water. And that was when Winston had got shot. Well, I was down there, so I was helping her. And we took every available clean article, whatever it was, pan or bottle or anything, and filled them with water as much as we could, because we had running water in the kitchen. And I went down around. I didn't go too far because we still didn't know whether they were going to start shooting at us again. But as I went by the windows when I came out the 2nd of March, when I walked by all of the rooms, I could see all the glass on the floor. There was no panes of glass left in the windows. The Venetian blinds were all hanging on one side, and everything was in a total mess. And when I went downstairs and saw how that had been shot up, it was full of holes. The ceilings, the floors, the walls, the windows were out. And it was really, we had been besieged. There's no other word for it.
Let me just mention, Catherine, that you, I want to get into the actual 51 days. I know that you, this is significant, that you were the one actually, how were you volunteered? Were you, bring out this, first off, there was a tape that David Koresh wanted you to bring out to play on primetime
radio.
radio.
David was laying upstairs on the second floor. He had got shot. Somebody came after me about 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what time I lay down, and told me that Dave wanted to see me, and I went downstairs, and he said, I want you to take this tape out. And I said, I don't want to go out. I want to stay right here. And he said, listen to her. Of course, everybody, all the women were sitting around. Listen to her. And then he started explaining to me. He said, I want you to take this out. He said, I want this to go, I want the world to know. I want this to go around so that people will understand what we're like. You know, he was so concerned. I know that at the time he was concerned that he might die and we might be left without anyone to help us. And of course that didn't happen. I have seen him come out of other accidents and things that happened to him miraculously. And it was a pure miracle. When I talked with there was 2 women that was taking care of his wound, and the nurse told me that the bullet went into his flesh, and there was a bone there, and it zagged, and then it zigged, and it went around that bone and came out the other side.
Okay.
And she said, I have never, the 2 women had been nurses for years and years, and they were in their 50s, 55, 60, something like that. And they said, I have never seen anything like it in my life. And I saw that a lot of indication of the blood that he had lost. And they said he'd lost so much blood, and that's why he was weak, and that's why he looked so white, and that's why he looked like he was dying. But his wrist and hand had been hit, and his side had been hit.
Let me ask you, what was, okay, we got to take a break here.
Okay.
You all see that we're getting,